Shalom. This week's Sedra is Sedra Toldos. There's a lot going on, but let's look at one thing. Pregnancy is very difficult. This isn't a novel thought, and while I've never been pregnant, I've been up and close and personal to 6 different pregnancies. This week's Sedra begins with Rivka's difficult pregnancy and continues with the story of 2 emerging nations. God wrote, I'm going to read, so pardon me for a minute. God wrote, Rebekah conceived, the children struggled within her, and she said, why am I suffering like this? She went to inquire of the Lord. God said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 people will separate from your womb. And one kingdom will become mightier than the other kingdom, and the elder will serve the younger. Every word that God speaks is meaningful, and none are extraneous, which begs the question, why God uses so many words to express the exact same message? God wanted Rivka to understand that her pregnancy problems stemmed from 2 very different fetuses in her womb, and their very different destinies. Why didn't God simply say that there were 2 fighting fetuses? Instead, God uses 3 different terms. The first is 2 nations are in your womb. The second, 2 people will separate. And the third is that they'll be separate from your womb. What do these 3 phrases add to the news that there are 2 fighting fetuses? In his commentary to these phrases, a 12th century scholar, the Rashbam, wrote that there were 2 nations, and he said that there were 2 nations that were meant to explain the pain. These were 2 completely different nations, and their battles were starting already in the womb. Rashi, an elderly scholar, wrote that when God said 2 peoples, he meant that there were 2 different kingdoms. These weren't just 2 future nations. Rather, these were kingdoms that would grow to rule the world. The Radak explained that these boys wouldn't develop into 2 different people, that they'd be 2 different people from even before they were born. The explanations given by the Rashbam, Rashi, and the Radak create more questions than answers. How can 2 fetuses develop into 2 different nations while mere fetuses? How can 2 babies be destined to be rulers of kingdoms? How can people's fates be determined by the time that they were born? Although the prophecies as stated came true, and they were stated by God himself, it's hard to understand how they could have been stated literally and as they are understood at first glance. Rather, the prophecy begs to be understood and at a more complex level. These twins were to be raised by powerhouse parents and influenced by powerhouse grandparents. They were born into a popular family with tens of thousands of followers. Their parents led lives on a mission to teach the world about ethical monotheism, a philosophy that would forever change mankind. They couldn't escape their destiny to lead. With 2 twins born, a natural rivalry was sure to develop. Only one of the brothers was to lead and take their parents' and grandparents' place. The older brother would grow to be resentful and reject his parents' ways. While it didn't require prophecy to predict that this would occur in their family, and as an expecting and hopeful mother, Rivka was too excited to see the cloudy future. Psychosomatic symptoms manifested themselves from deep within her subconscious of what she knew to be true. Rivka was a smart woman who knew that her children would not grow to be average people. She understood that leaders raise leaders. Missions are passed down and rivalries develop between siblings. God tells Rivka the truth and makes her deal with it. Rivka will spend the rest of her life dealing with the reality of her situation. She will be forced to choose one of her children over the other and work behind her husband's back to manipulate the situation so that her choice is picked to lead. The message is clear. People enjoy free choice and the power to choose their own destiny. At the same time, though, there are certain parts of our lives that are predetermined by our physical and social environments. Early in her pregnancy, Rivka is forced to deal with this reality. It's a strange concept because we're told from the very beginning that we have free choice. But in truth, a lot of our free choice is limited based on our environments around us. That's a reality that Rivka faces and that the prophecy allowed her to see and deal with in a healthy way. Shabbat Shalom.